Welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Grab a seat and relax.
Yes.
We're back.
We're back. Ish.
Yeah.
I don't want to relax too much because I might fall asleep. I am so tired.
Yeah. And also, we have a lot to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a week to go until CitrusCon. And
Yes.
we are very excited. It's going to be, it's fine. It's going to be
Yeah.
fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's
Come
fine.
listen to us on, I think it is on the Saturday?
It is.
Yes.
We were going to talk about that at the end of the episode.
Yeah. But I'm just throwing it out there now. Come listen to us. It's going to be fun.
Carola is so excited for Citrus.
I am very excited for CitrusCon, and also mildly confused because now I have to deal with 3 time zones, and I'm just over here
Yep.
like I don't even know.
Me over here with a watch dedicated to Norway time.
Yeah, I have one dedicated to San Antonio.
Aw, thank you. Uh, For those of you who are not in our Discord server, we've been going through it this June.
It's been
So,
terrible.
yeah, it's not been great over here to start, but we took the time off that we needed. We're back. This episode is super important because of where we are right now in history and it being Pride. And this is where I have to make an obligatory American statement. We are recording this episode on Father's Day in 2025. Yesterday, across this country, we had protests for the head fascist in chief against him, which was great. There's a lot going on here in the US. Inevitably, it will bleed into these topics. They are related because
Yep.
it discusses oppression, issues that affect women, issues that affect queer people. It's not just us trying to be like, oh, game that algorithm. It's because it's stuff that affects me.
It's because it's just a constant uphill battle.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, unfortunately, history does have a tendency of repeating itself.
Correct.
And a lot of the topics are, unfortunately, I don't want to use the term evergreen because there's nothing green about this. It's just, unfortunately, they are always relevant, more or less. And unfortunately, we are in the more category at the moment. I do want to mention that last week there was a protest here. At least there's probably been several, but there was a big protest here as well, against the whole, against everything really that's going on. There are a lot of protests supporting Palestine.
Love that.
And we usually are a very calm and collected country, but people were being pepper sprayed. Which, yeah. So,
yeah, that's a lot for y'all.
But I do think there was recently as well demonstrations outside the American embassy. So we are with you. We are also fighting.
So if you hear us talk about that, it's because it is relevant. We're not just trying to like game the system. I have seen there's been a lot of discourse like on TikTok. It's like, why aren't more influencers talking about this? And it's like, because I'm here for Warhammer 40K and this guy lives in a basement in Sweden and I don't expect him.
I also think that at this point, like, there's just so much fatigue. Like, everyone's just so tired. It's like, how many times are we going to have to go on the internet and say, hey, guess what? Fascism and bigotry is bad?
Yeah.
Like,
This is our standing position. It's bad.
It's bad. Okay.
It's bad. So again, this will inevitably come up. I'm sure it will. But just in case, half of this podcast is American and Black and queer and lives in the South.
The other half is empathizing heavily. And yeah. I'm so sorry to all our American listeners. Like, know that we got your backs. We're doing what we can.
Yes.
And the whole world is watching.
Also, while we continue to make this show, please enjoy this moment of levity while we talk
Yeah.
about Carola, what are we talking about this month?
Oh my god, we are talking about our founding godmothers, etc. We are talking about the women today who
Yeah.
are the sole reason why we get to do this and
Yes.
why we even have BL content. I think it's probably going to dip into, not only the women of the past, but
Hmm.
largely. I am very excited. Like my hobby scholar brain is just like on fire. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
This is my forte.
This is an episode designed for Carola.
Yeah.
And also, you made a great note in here that said, if this is your first time listening to the show,
Yeah.
this is the best episode you can come in on.
Yeah, this is actually one of those episodes where it's like this is a good one to start on because we are going back to the basics. And
Yeah.
maybe we are not, I mean, I can't guarantee that we're not going to get unhinged. No
Carola, it's
guarantee.
us. Have we ever been hinged?
No.
No, we were briefly hinged for our episode with Dr.
Yeah,
Thomas.
that was and even that was difficult.
Yeah.
Um
We were too busy fangirling to
oh,
hinge.
he's a brilliant man.
Okay. I'm so excited to talk about the female roots of BL because I think one of the things about BL, especially when we're talking about like yaoi, is that a lot of the things that currently come up as discourse points and things that, to quote Dr. Thomas, fans have been struggling and talking about for generations comes from this very female background. Now, I don't think that that's bad, but I think studying and understanding it does a lot towards helping you rationalize, explain, and understand it. It's
Hmm.
about gaining empathy for that. Um, it's not an excuse for bad writing sometimes. Stares, stares at Hontoyaju.
Stop harping on Hontoyaju.
Make it end.
Oh my god. If you would like to
Why is this
support
still?
Amanda's cause,
Why is it still ongoing?
again,
Make it stop.
I'm just reflexively defending it because I know I loved it at the point where I was actively reading it, and now it's just in limbo in the back of my head, and I can't even remember what it's about. But I feel strongly about it.
Mm.
But yeah, no. But it's like we are always saying that in order to understand and I want to say, like, if you want to have a position in the discussion, if you want to discuss media and
Mhm.
media literacy and what's good and what's bad, okay, then you need to learn your fandom history.
Mhm.
You don't get a place at the table unless you actually know what you're talking about. That's what I want to say. And today we are going to give you some of that knowledge. I am ready. Like,
A bunch of aunties clocking in for their.
like I'm so fucking ready to fight today. I'm just like, I had a horrible week. The world is on fire.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go on the internet and it's a
Sometimes.
mistake.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. This is definitely less my forte than it is Carola's. Carola is definitely going to be pulling
Wow.
the weight of the show
Can
this
you
episode.
imagine? This has never happened before.
Oh, if I just like kick my feet up and lean back, let you
Well,
run things.
I mean, you're much better at like um guiding us through everything than I am, so I will be relying on you to just like kind of like, can you please just steer the ship and I'll
Yeah.
just talk. Like
Okay.
that's um yeah,
I'm imagining one of those like dad inventions where like they're fishing and they have like 13 poles out and they're all like jimmied together into like one contraption.
yeah.
That's what I'm imagining with the boat. Just like I'm leaning back with a pina colada, just like pulling a string to very.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah.
I'm happy to steer the boat and participate. But yeah, this is actually a great intro episode. Again, for those who are, this is your if this is your first time listening. Hi.
Hi, well, welcome. How did you find us? What a great month to start following us.
Yeah,
I mean,
happy
despite
Pride.
Happy Pride, despite everything,
Yeah,
Happy Pride,
happy Pride. I love that we
Happy
discuss.
Protest.
I love that we discuss our podcast like it's Sasquatch. Like, how did you find us? Like, as if we don't disseminate it across
To be fair, algorithms,
our hard.
yeah, on a general basis, I think algorithms do far less for creators than they should, and
Mhm.
that we would be less Sasquatchy if people would actually see our posts. I think that
This is true.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you ready to get
Wow.
started?
I guess so.
So we have some central questions to start us off with, and that is, who are the women that make BL?
It is I.
Yeah, the same.
We are the women who,
Us.
and probably a lot of listeners as well.
Yeah. We're also in the answer to the second question, why do women make and consume BL?
Hi. You know,
Uh,
I we will be answering these questions. I want to give a TLDR answer to that
yes.
second one.
Yes.
Many reasons. Lots of reasons. The end.
Well, and I also, because it is Pride, I think it is important to say, when, especially we're discussing fans and consumers, when we say women, we mean women, female presenting people, and women assigned at birth.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we discussed in the Fujin Pipeline episode, like, I am not always a woman. I group myself under woman a lot because convenience, and it's not necessarily wrong. But many of us are now a very different flavor of gender.
Mm-hmm.
But that socialization, that baggage, and especially when we talk about like the socialization part tying us back to the misogyny episode that we discussed,
Yeah.
a lot of that doesn't just go away.
No.
Um,
And
I was,
and
yes.
and you know, and I just want to like, and not only like AFABs and
Mm-hmm.
female presenting people, but I mean, we talked about that in the misogyny episode. I also think we talked about it when we talked about Simas and Ukis, that the Uki characters, you know, being a bottom is often
Mm-hmm.
also associated with misogyny, because you know,
Mm-hmm.
anything that is perceived as feminine is perceived as negative. So you can have these experiences even if you don't identify with any kind of like female identity, if you
Correct.
might still have some of these experiences.
Correct. So that's a little bit of definition when we say women, because we're very rarely talking about just like cis women. We
Yeah,
are
very rarely.
including, we're very rarely just talking
Yeah.
about like cis women.
And like, and I also want to preface by again harping on the fact that a lot of mangaka use, you know, they use pen names, they don't disclose anything about
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and so we don't really know the identities um of a lot of the mangakas who write the BL that we consume, and we have a tendency of
Mm-hmm.
just assuming they're cis women. I
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of them, I think, because we live in a world that now, you know, even now, like we have phrases, we have terminology that didn't
Mm-hmm.
exist 10-15 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine our founding godmothers, who we'll be getting to, when they, you know, were young in the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, like how like they didn't necessarily, maybe they wouldn't identify as women if they were young today, you know. Like I'm not saying, I'm not like projecting any identity onto anyone, but it's just there are categories today that didn't
Yes.
necessarily exist before, and so
Yes.
identities are always evolving um and challenging the norms as well.
Correct. I think that's a great point. But yeah, TLDR, women do things for a various amount of reasons, especially in the BL space.
Yeah.
Uh, we need to go on a quick backstory to feminism and the countercultures of Japan.
Yes, we do.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The quick, just just like the quick backdrop before we do anything, because like
Yes.
the BL as we know it came into existence in the 70s, and
Hmm.
before that, like prior to that, the whole world knows. The 60s. There are these huge uproars and all of these social changes happening everywhere. Plenty of countercultures. This is not limited to the West. This is also happening in Japan. So
Hmm.
Japanese women are beginning to, much like women elsewhere, to take a bigger part in society and demand respect and to demand more um, agency, basically.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that this is being done is via the establishing of kawaii culture as we know it. So there are all of these small rebellions, like how um for instance, when they would write, they would have like these writing tools, like they would buy cutesy pens, and then they would
Hmm.
start drawing their kanji in like these very like rounded feminine ways, just to kind of like break with the norm. And so it starts with these like small rebellions against society and against the norm in terms of expression and fashion and everything. And then it also it grows into, for instance, the manga spaces. So the BL, the beginnings of BL stem from a world that is beginning to change, and like the social changes that are happening everywhere. It's kind
Correct.
of the backdrop.
Yes. And I think it's interesting that like such things I feel like are sometimes almost inevitable in society. Like you
Mm.
mentioned, like writing with like really, really cute pens. I went to a Catholic school, if you can't tell by the everything. Oh, I went to a Catholic school for a while, and like one of the ways we would rebel was like with our socks.
Mm.
Because if we were in uniform for everything else, they couldn't get mad at us if our socks were like rainbow or anything like
Mm.
that. So like we would rebel with like socks and accessories.
Yeah, I've heard about that in not only Catholic schools, but yeah, when you have like these like uniform societies, there are
Mm-hmm.
those tiny little ways to show that, hey, I'm an individual. I am different.
Yes.
This is how I stand out.
And mine was reading Inuyasha during lunch.
Oh, how rebellious.
Oh, I was such a rebel. So I think the thing about yaoi and BL, especially in Japan, that I think many of us forget, and I'll admit that I'm guilty of this as well, is that BL is not something that started in like 2004.
It
This
did
is
not.
it did not erupt out of nothing in like the early 2000s, because I mean I am a pretty decent BL scholar. I'm not as good as Carola, but I'm pretty decent at it. Um and even I sometimes forget just how far back it goes.
Mm.
I get that way with anime in general sometimes. Like I'm usually pretty good at acknowledging like, oh yeah, like there was Astro Boy and all of this, and then it's like, oh, you mean like the 1930s? Eh.
No, like you have like this tunnel vision. It's like these specific years where you were at your peak and nothing else exists. It's like,
Yeah,
what do you mean there's stuff that came out after 2007? Amanda has nothing to do with that. That's not.
I'm absolutely that guy that peaked in high school. It's like just still listening to all the same music, dressing the same, doing all the same things.
I mean, I do a lot of those things too,
I was about to
but
say you don't get to.
no, I don't get to talk. Although I want to brag, when I went to the whole music museum thing
Mm,
yesterday with my with
mm,
my children, with my youth that I
mm.
work with. We won. My team won the music quiz.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was mainly because I am older than everyone else, and therefore I have seen a Walkman and stuff. But like, I just want to point out that part of, like, we did win,
Mhm,
but that most of that was because I knew about stuff that happened in the 90s, and when they were like showing us stuff that is going on now, I was like, what
mhm.
the hell is this? Who is this singer? I've never seen this person in my life. So I feel you. I cannot. This is why I'm so good at this. I like history. I like being able to explain what happened, how it
Mhm.
happened, who was involved, and the present is too messy. I will talk
Yeah.
to you about the present in 20 years when it's over.
No, I mean, I can tell you a lot about the gay letters that King James wrote to his lover.
I mean, I can't, but
I could,
yeah.
special interest unlocked. I can tell you a lot about the vicars and King James letters.
I mean,
But
please do.
in our private chat, also, it is Father's Day here in the U.S. Can I get a Happy Father's Day in chat?
Happy Father's Day.
So let's talk about our founding mothers. I think it's really, really important, again, to go back in time because it's one thing I see is an issue of modern fandom in general is this difficulty going back. And at first, I used to be like the real gatekeeper jerk about it, where it's like, oh, these kids don't know their history, baby. But like now, even I'm guilty of it because for many of us, this was before we were born, before our parents were born. Uh, this was a long time ago. And as
Yeah.
time marches forward, it just gets farther and farther back.
Yeah.
So I've softened my stance a little because at first I was really like, oh, this is a sign the kids are corrupt. They're not like us and they didn't go back and appreciate our history. Also, the 2000s was a long time ago.
Yeah. And I just and and what we're going to go into now is even
Mhm.
further back. Like it's even a longer
Exactly.
time ago. But and I also want to point out something that although we might like to pretend otherwise, we
Mhm.
are also not perfect. Because
No.
here's the thing, a lot of scholarship, a lot of academia on BL and BL history was not available in English until
Mhm.
fairly recently. I think for the longest time, it was like Mark McClelland was like the only person kind of like doing research on this. And as we've
Mhm.
talked about before, some of his research is now it's what do you call it, like it's not
Paywall?
relevant. Yeah, because he went back and said that, hey, when I wrote this, disregard that, that's not how it works
Mhm.
anymore, and there weren't a lot of research being done in English. There were very few sources available for Western fans, and so and the internet was younger. We didn't have
Mhm.
the same access we do now. So it's not like Amanda and I at 16, 17, we didn't know who these women were. Like even if you could watch, I think Kazutoki no Uta, the OVA came out in I can't remember when it was released. It was released fairly early, but it was still hard to get your hands on it when we
Mhm.
were young.
Mhm.
I actually didn't get to watch it until I was an adult. I rewatched it this week actually, just to kind of like prepare for this. It was very, but we didn't have access to a lot of these things. I didn't know who these a lot of these women were until I was an
Mhm.
adult, and I had to sit down and research it because I had the the resources available to
Mhm.
learn about them. So it's not like we weren't born knowing all of this either. It's
Right.
it hasn't been available to us for a very long time.
Correct. And we're going to talk about some of the differences between mangaka in the early days and mangaka now,
Mm,
because like social media has allowed for a lot more transparency between the two.
mhm.
We're going to talk about that later. We're not going to talk about that yet. Uh, so we have to talk about Takemiya Keiko and Moto Hagio,
My
which
queens.
I swear I think they're brought up every episode.
I love them. Despite the fact that again, hello, I'm a fake fan. I haven't really read that much of their stuff, but I also want to again preface by the fact that not a lot of their stuff is available.
Correct.
And what is available is very hard to get. Can I just like just a side note? Okay, so
Mhm.
Moto Hagio
Mhm.
has a manga called 11 nin iru. They were
Mhm.
11. And this manga, I believe it was finally released in English in May after being pushed back for like a year. It was announced and then nothing happened. And I pre-ordered it, and this
Mhm.
pre-order kept being pushed back. And then the other day I logged into whatever bookstore and to check if they were ever going to ship it. And then they had canceled it because it had been pushed back for so long, and I had to reorder it. And I think that now I will finally get to own it with my own hands. It's been an ordeal. So it's not like they're not easy to get your hands on.
They're not. They're not.
I am begging someone. If you are a publisher and you are listening, can someone just license Kazutoki no Uta in English? I will pay for it. Like, please. Please.
Just Carola.
Just me. I'm the only person in the world who needs this. Just like just please.
I mean, I would like it for the history.
I mean, I own the Japanese volumes. However,
However,
it's not an easy read. No.
But you also have a really, really interesting note here that is the year 24 group. And I think lots of people are going to have questions about that, including myself. So would you mind explaining? Thank you.
Yes, I will try to break it down as short and sweet as I can. So when we talk about the founding mothers or founding godmothers or whatever of BL, we are talking about predominantly a group of women sometimes known as the year 24 group, sometimes known as the Fantastic 49ers. They're the Hana no Niju Yongumi in Japanese. So basically all of this refers to the year 24 in Showa, or 1949 in English, which is around, or rather in the Western calendar, which is around when these women were born. And they aren't like an established group. It's more like they are a group of mangaka who are associated with the shoujo revolution and the manga revolution and what grew into becoming BL eventually, some of them. So among them, we have obviously Takemiya Keiko and Moto Hagio, who are like the two most influential. Takemiya Keiko being the author of Kazutoki no Uta, but also Sunroom Nite, in the Sunroom, which is the first shoujo, the first manga that depicts a kiss between two men or two boys. Moto Hagio, the author of I think Toma no Shinzo is probably the most famous, The Heart of Thomas. There's also Ikeda Ryoko, who made Rose of Versailles, subverting all of these women, subverting gender and sexuality and challenging the norms of not only sexuality and gender in shoujo manga, but also like taking these narratives that I haven't read a lot of shoujo manga from pre-1970, let's be fair. Like I haven't read a lot of, like, my oldest shoujo ventures are probably like in the 90s. But, shoujo has largely been focused on romance, right? And the experiences of young girls. And then these women decided to really challenge those narratives by going into a lot more like deeper, darker subject matters as well. So, dealing with a lot of trauma and, abuse and sexual trauma and a lot of these like very like dark and gritty things, as well as sexual subjects. And, Ikeda Ryoko wrote a one-shot called Claudine, which came out in the 70s, I believe, which it's about a trans woman. And it is, of course, very sad, because it's very, those were not great days to be. The setting isn't great, but there are these early representations of like non-conforming gender and sexual identities that these women created. So, but at that point when they were making these, they were publishing Heart of Toma and Kazutoki no Uta. BL wasn't a thing yet. We haven't gotten there yet. So it counts as shoujo. And then it has like, they attributed a lot of different names to it. So for instance, Hagio and Takemiya were very much inspired by, I think most mangaka, but them in particular were very inspired by the European culture, European highbrow culture, especially French and German, which is why a lot of these stories are set to boarding schools in France and Germany. And so
Mhm.
they refer to their works as Knabenlieb, which means boys love in German, which then I guess gives birth to, don't quote me on that, I might be wrong, but why they started calling it Shonenai, because Knabenlieb, boy love,
Mhm.
Shonenai, boy love.
Mhm.
And then there's now I'm getting into the how BL became BL, but like just 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 want to finish up that train of thought that there's an essay that is published at some point in the late 70s, I think, that called Shonenai no Bigak, which is where the term Shonenai originates. That's kind of when they're like, oh, this fits with the stories that we're telling, so they start
Mhm.
referring to it as such. So those are the women. They are they're just like they're drawing on all of this inspiration, and I think, like we talked about in an earlier episode, that you typically would set these stories to a Western setting
Mhm.
because it was more open, or like the idealized, not that Kazutoki no Uta or the Po clan or whatever. Nothing's idealized about those societies. It's all very depressing, but like they have this idealized idea of what Europe is like, and Japan is much
Yes.
more like close-minded. So
Mhm.
easier to tell those stories, I think, from a Western perspective.
Can I do some literary analysis?
Please do.
So I think it's interesting to tie this kind of all together is like especially like Heart of Tama is a Bildungsroman, which is like a very, very specific kind of like growing up story where there's like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of adversity. Um, so what's fascinating about that is you see a lot of Bildungsroman used in classic literature. It's also usually a lot of the books that you read when you were in school, for especially us Westerners and really just us Westerners, like all across. Like I was gonna say, for us Americans, I live in Texas. Our required reading was terrible. That's also my other podcast. We talk about what we are required to read. So what's fascinating is that some of the earliest examples of this are drawn from literature. They're
Hmm.
drawn from classic literature. And it's that same dialectic that fans have been doing for a long time, which is taking the things that we know and love
Mm-hmm.
and transforming them into something else. Like,
Yeah.
really, you could say, like, The Heart of Tama is like a separate piece fan fiction.
Yeah, it could be. And they had this, yeah, shout out to I think her name is Masuyama Norie. So
Yeah.
Masuyama Norie is not part of the Year 24 group. She is Takemiya and Hagio's neighbor. So Takemiya and Hagio lived together in this place that was called
Mhm.
the Oisumi Salon, where they just like kind of hung out and created stuff and read stuff and everything. And they had this neighbor who would bring them this
Mhm.
European highbrow culture. So she would be bringing them like movies and books and music. So, for instance, Death in Venice was a huge inspiration. So there's this Swedish teenager, Björn Andresen, who is basically the poster boy for the original Bishonen. If you look
Mhm.
at Jiruber or Toma or any of these boys, they look a lot like Björn. It's really funny, and but she would supply them with these books, right? So
Mhm.
particularly the novels of the German novelist Hermann Hesse, who wrote a lot about particularly boys in schools. He is a big inspiration for these two. So exactly what you're saying. They're like they are
Right.
reading Hermann Hesse and then they're taking that and adapting it.
Exactly. And, we're both very, very strong on like championing for fan creators.
Mm,
And it's like, that's what we do.
yeah.
We do the same thing as we take what we read and what we've learned and we adapt it and we grow. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are a fanfic writer who is feeling particularly down, just remember, uh, you are standing on the shoulders of giants. You are doing great.
Yeah. This is
Uh,
exactly what we're all doing.
yeah, this is exactly what we're all doing. And also, this follows the very standard literary practice of if I have a lot to say about the country that I'm living in, I'm going to set the work somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare was very, very well known for that. Um, I have a lot to say about the people I live next door to. but I also don't want to die.
And it's like, it's probably like, can you imagine, like, in Shakespearean era, like, the people of fair Verona wake up every other week and it's like, what the fuck, again? What? Why is it always us? Oh
Uh, Verona now is a tourist trap, so like they lean into it.
no.
But I can imagine there was a period of time where it's like, oh fuck.
Why is it always us?
I can imagine like for a time, like the Danes were very upset about Hamlet.
Yeah, they might be. I don't even. I remember when I found out that Hamlet was Danish. I was like, what do you mean? That's interesting. Like, what?
Because he wasn't talking about actual Denmark. He was talking about the guy next door.
And it's also like looking at all the names in Hamlet. I'm like, I don't think that there were a lot of Danes walking around with those names. I don't know. To be fair, I don't know a lot about Denmark in the 1500s.
Say it with me. It had Shakespeare threw a dart at the map.
Yeah, right.
The flat earth.
I mean, why the hell not? You know?
So I think it's very, very fascinating that like this world of BL that we find ourselves in gets that rooting. And something that we talk about, I swear, every single episode. BL got its roots from shoujo.
We can't escape it.
We can't. we really can't. And I think, and I know this, and this is something that really helped me understand a lot of the limitations of BL, was having a fundamental understanding of that. That the roots are in Sojo. Now, I think it's interesting because, and we talked about this during our Queering Shonen episode, for many of us, our BL roots started in Shonen. So if you've ever noticed, fan fiction work tends to read a lot differently than published BL. Because our roots came from action, from battle shonen, and those tropes versus the soft pitter patter romance of dimly lit schools and candles and braiding each other's hair and flowers.
What BL have you been reading? What do you mean? Who's braiding each other's hair?
No one.
Clearly, I'm not.
It's in my Heart of Tama fanfic where everything's just fine.
Excuse me, but what if someone just, Iaso Mink, braid that hair? Like, he's got some beautiful hair. Like, I'm just, but no, and I was reading when I was preparing for this, because obviously I was digging out my academia, my academic library, and I was actually reading a text I will be referencing a little bit later on. Not that it's super like, it's not super relevant, but I thought there were some interesting juxtapositions with the whole, like, the creators of old and new. But I think it's also interesting, what you just said, because this actually was reflected both in the text I read. So I was reading a research paper by Dr. Kirsten Santos. She's amazing. I love her. I want her on this show at some point. We can talk about that later. But I was reading stuff from her, and then I was also reading this book, Cross-Dressing Fantasies, Japanese Women Write Male Erotica by Kazumi Nagaike. This is from 2012, so a lot of the stuff in here isn't necessarily up to date. But interestingly, they were both like crossing paths on like on some similar subject, which is the whole, yes, BL stems from shoujo, and I wasn't aware of this. Again, look at me admitting that I don't know everything. But BL in Japan, did you know that it's not actually classified, like, regardless of how graphic it is, regardless of how incredibly smutty it is, it's not classified as porn? Like, they don't consider it as porn because it's more closely associated with the women's manga culture.
Yes.
So because it's associated with shoujo and also what they call redisu, ladies,
Mhm.
it's just like you could have the most explicit fucking Maki Murakami dojin and they'd be like, no, no, this is fine. You don't have to be 18 years old to purchase this because this is made for women. This is not pornography. I'm like, this is the most hysterical thing I've read in my life.
I think
Uh,
we will have to discuss the sexual politics one day
yes, I would love that. I have
because
learned.
I did know that, and I know that because I went to Mononoke.
No, but like I've been to Mandarake, but like that's not. I don't consider it. When I go there because
Yeah.
that's just. But like if you went to, and also I've been to Animate, but obviously I didn't. I don't. I don't think like that when I go on my pilgrimage. I don't know. I don't consider it. Also, I am over 18, even though
Yeah.
people don't necessarily. I've never been carded in Japan,
Yeah.
but
No, I think that's a great topic that we might have to pick up is that sexual politics. Just because I know like here in the US, one of the big reasons why like yaoi and BL was such a big deal was that to us, oh, this is just porn. This
yeah,
is pornography marketed at children. And eh, we will be
yeah.
here all day. It's been 42 minutes
Oh,
almost.
okay. No, but what I was going to say, like in regards to that, because of what you said, which I think it kind of ties into, because it does tie into the shoujo roots, because
Hmm.
typically another one of the reasons why it isn't considered as porn is because of this perception and also the tradition of,
Hmm.
and now I'm talking about commercially published works, because we all know that dojins
Yes.
are all over the place. But
Correct.
in commercialized BL, the tradition typically is that the focus is on romance. And
Hmm.
so the way that the even like the sex scenes are portrayed tend to be tend to be more focused. They're more introspective, so it's more focused on what are they thinking, how are they perceiving it emotionally, like everything has this kind of like dreamy haze to it, in like traditionally speaking. And that's kind of where that comes from, because it's unless of course it is non-con, but we will get to that.
I am so sorry, but I think you need to know the montage that just flashed in my head was like just a series of like 90s 2000s semes, and it's all like foggy and hazy and just like that soft grunt of it's tight.
Hmm.
Like that just flashed in my head the entire time you were
Yeah.
talking.
And
And I was like,
I have so much, like, if I don't watch myself, I'm going to turn this into an entire episode about Dr. Kirsten's research, because it is so fascinating to me. Because I realized some stuff while reading this, but that has to do with, us growing up with this genre, so to
yes.
speak, that a lot of the things that I have considered, like, oh, but BL is, but there are so many graphic BL manga, right? But then I realized, oh, but they're all newer. It's just that I was kind of like consuming all of it at the same time. So
Yes.
we didn't necessarily differentiate, because it has already started to change by the time we kind of get access to
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna have to talk about this. We like that. There was like a very, very dreamy montage in my head, and I like just felt heat begin to prick my cheeks because I felt like I was back and being like 17 years old and reading this. And like,
No, I
ooh,
absolutely also had the montage in my head when
like
I was
just,
talking about.
just like a faceless stream of like every
Oh
fucking
yeah.
90s, 2000s blonde fucking seme that I've ever seen.
Oh
Just,
my god. I
oh
was
my goodness.
Oh no, yeah, no. I
Oh.
was watching what the hell, Sekimatsu Darling the other day, which is
Mm.
another that I haven't seen in so long. That when I turned on this OVA, I was like, have I even watched this? But I had. I just couldn't remember anything. And yeah, some blonde Seme opens his mouth, and whose voice comes out of his mouth? I'm like, Yuki! Fucking dying. Yuki! I'm not okay.
I think I found our next game is just like a tier list of blonde semes.
Let's go. There's a lot.
Patrons especially, let us know if that's the game you want us to play.
We should have one of those. We should have one of those where you draw them and you have to place them in a tier.
Oh, that's what I was imagining.
Yeah, and it's like you have to choose who's daddy, who's your side piece, who's
yes. But yeah, I love that conversation. We definitely need to save it for another episode, and we'll definitely see if we can get Dr. Kristen to talk about it. I don't know. I don't like the way I described that. Like I was a yakuza. I was just gonna like make it happen. Like, oh yeah, we'll get Dr. Kristen. Don't worry about it. Just like
don't worry, it's
hoist
fine.
over shoulder. Like, okay, don't worry, we got this.
Dr. Kirsten, if you're listening, we're joking.
Yeah, we're joking. We're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
So that's a good understanding of the base.
Mm.
Really revolutionary shoujo works that turned into writing about boys in particularly idyllic environments that are not actually idyllic.
It's like idyllic environments where like the literal worst things happen.
Yeah, because like I remember that was always I'm gonna say issue because I don't have a better word for it. Like that was always my thing with Heart of Toma is that I really just wanted it to be like making daisy crowns and like everything is okay.
Yeah.
And checks notes, it was not. But I think coming up now to the 1980s is where we start to get our footing, which is in the explosion of fan culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously this is kind of like here. I guess we could also tie it into the Western fan culture and start like because Slash also has a place in this conversation, but that's not. I didn't go there, so I don't have a lot of input on the Western fan spaces from in that sense. But basically, one of the major things that happens, I do believe I have said this before because I love my history and I enjoy throwing it in people's faces as often as I can. But so in the early 80s, Comiket happens for the first time, right? Comic market, and like even at its first. In its first year, I think I don't remember the numbers right now, but I think that a very, very large portion of the people who were tabling at the first Comiket and now even more so were women who were selling their doujins that were largely gay parodies of existing shonen and sports manga. And I talked about this when we were talking queering shonen and when we were talking about gay sports, because Captain Tsubasa, which I have yet to finish watching. There are so many episodes, but yeah, Captain Tsubasa was huge. Saint Seiya. I still haven't watched Saint Seiya. Have you seen Saint Seiya?
I've seen like like a singular episode.
One episode.
I've seen like one episode, and I remember feeling just like, so to dumb Americans like me, anime is always very overwhelming in like a neurodivergent meltdown kind of way, which is why so many of us like it. I watched like one episode of Saint Seiya and was just like, I don't understand anything. And I felt like I had to like breathe mechanically afterwards. Like I didn't understand.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably very likely that you also just watch some random episode in the middle of a whole thing.
No, this was not started with intention. It was 100% at like 1:30 a.m. On Adult Swim while I was waiting for Inuyasha and Lupin the Third.
Yeah, because I also have very, like, until recently, and one of the reasons why I am doing this now, like, why I decided to start watching Captain Tsubasa was literally because we are doing all of these episodes, and I now have a very strong urge to go back to our roots and understand what our godmothers were doing. So, but I don't have a relationship to these series either. I just know that Captain Tsubasa and Saint Seiya in particular were like 90% of the doujins that were being created in that time frame.
Yeah, I do recall that about Saint Seiya because I got to tangentially see a lot of that dojin. It was usually in like some trench coat guy's hentai Bible. Um, so I remember Saint Seiya being like Sasunaru is to us. I do remember that. I couldn't tell you anything about it, but I do have memories of it. Also, I apologize for this absolutely massive water bottle
Oh
today.
no, there's another one. Well, at least you're staying hydrated.
Yeah. Like I just realized as I took a sip, I apologize for this absolutely obscene fucking water bottle.
Yeah, it's quite big. It's like half of you. It's like that thing's taller than you are. I think it's
Toxic.
like I think it's the size of my niece. You know, like my baby niece who I saw today. I think she's around that size.
It's a liter.
Yeah. Jesus
Yeah, it's sizable. It is sizable. Sounds like a plain uke. But
Christ.
also, when you were saying I want to go back to our roots, I just imagined you like in pilgrim garb churning butter while also reading yaoi.
Yeah, and
Like
kind of like that. I
that's what
will
I read.
I will admit I am better at one of those things than the other. I'll leave it up to your imagination which one I'm good at. We actually had to make our own butter in school once. It was terrible.
When I was in school, they took us to a cemetery that functioned as like a living history museum, and it was where a guy buried a bunch of his slaves in like unmarked graves. And they had like a butter churn, and we just turned butter churning into a contest, and like we're told we're very good at churning butter, and like that was a formative memory to me of telling a bunch of like suburban children that we would be good like cult wives.
Yeah,
My
that
childhood was very normal.
clearly. Uh,
I had a very normal childhood full of normal experiences, which is why I'm the host of a BL
exactly.
podcast.
Like you didn't. I was about to say you did not stand a chance when BL came for you. You were like you were already so victimized. It was just like
BL coming in like a miasma. It's like pitch black in that one movie with the hot Jack
oh
Frost. It's
god.
just coming in. Like hello. But I think it's interesting that fan culture is what shaped BL to be really, I think, the powerhouse that it is today.
Mm,
Because the idea of separating fan culture from BL now feels impossible.
yeah. And the thing is, and I probably have touched upon all of this because again, that's the thing about history. Like if you feel like I'm saying a lot of these things over and over, it's because I am. Because
Mm-hmm.
these are our roots and
Mm-hmm.
it comes up in so many conversations because it's always relevant and it explains what we're doing. And fan culture and the mainstream, especially in BL, have always been very, very tightly knit because the same mangaka who like a lot of mangaka started out drawing doujins and then they went and published original works, but they also keep publishing doujins. So that's why you'll
Mm-hmm.
see, like a lot of the bigger names that, familiar names that we know even, in the West, like how of course now I can't remember a single name of anyone I've ever read in my entire life, you know. But like Nakamura Azumiko, even her, she was in that Sarasanmai anthology. Like they're
She
doing
was.
anthologies, they're doing doujins, and they don't stop doing doujin even though
Mm-hmm.
they're published because it is, I think the fan culture, especially in Japan, is such a respected sphere, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, oh, now you have to stop writing all of these parodies and all of this like spin-off work because you have your own work. That's not how it works. and
Right.
and in, when the early publications, when June, the magazine, started being published in the late 70s, the same people, like there were both amateurs and professional mangaka creating content for the magazine side by side. So you would have like founding members of the genre like Takemiya Keiko, who were
Mm-hmm.
regulars, who had like, she had a column. She would make cover art. She would make stories. Like I think Kazuto Kinuta was serialized in June.
Mhm.
But then you would have, these random amateur people who were often, high schoolers, just experimenting with manga and publishing their own works through these magazines. So you would have like a mix between fan works and originals from the get-go.
Mhm.
So it's very tightly knit.
Absolutely. And I think that that's so interesting that you see that difference in Japanese culture versus here in the US, because like my complicated feelings about Rebecca Sugar. Uh,
Can we? That should be a sticker. Just Amanda's complicated feelings about Rebecca Sugar.
well, we're getting that Steven Universe sequel series. I get to bring them up.
Sure.
Um, but like I remember that when I was watching Steven Universe, like that was a detriment to me. That
Mm.
wasn't, oh, I recognize a fellow fan. It was like, ew, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
Like that was
but I think that now we're beginning to see a change in the West, because
yes.
now it's kind of like we know, and I think it's because a lot of the audience who are reading these books, whether they're like romantasy book talk trend books or
Mm-hmm.
like other things, we also came from, fan fiction or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So if an author now says that, hey, I used to write fanfic for this fandom, or I actually still write fanfic for this fandom,
Mm-hmm.
most people, I think, don't judge them for it. But when
Yes.
I started self-publishing, I had to make a conscious choice to remove myself from
Mm-hmm.
my fan works, because I knew that I already wasn't going to get, I wasn't going to be taken seriously being an indie published author, because, that wasn't the thing back then. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, well, anyone can do that. It doesn't mean you're a good writer. And also, if I was also known under my same, using the same name as I did writing,
Mm-hmm.
Naruto fan fiction, like
Mm-hmm.
social suicide. That's what it was.
Well, no, and it's so interesting because like that was one of the reasons why I never wanted to publish like anything.
Yeah, and I've
Was that it
heard
was
other
like,
people say that as well, other writer
yeah,
friends.
because like because I've always wanted to publish like a book
Yeah.
because to quote Conclave, every cardinal wants to be a pope. You already have your saint name picked out.
To be fair, it's easier to be a writer, to be a published author, than to become pope.
It is, but and
There can only be
I
one pope.
I just wanted to quote Conclave. I just wanted to quote Conclave. But like every writer wants to publish. They want to do something.
Mm.
And I found my out by blogging, where I did technically still get to publish, but I could keep blog Amanda and dirty fanfic Amanda
Yeah.
as two very separate identities. But the idea that, oh, if I published a book, that would be very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And would I face scrutiny for the fan that I was slash am and not be taken seriously? And especially being black and queer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I don't need to give anyone any reason to discredit me, yet alone my Bat Family fanfic.
Right. And it's like, I think, again, we're not trying to paint out like Japan to be some utopia the way that
No,
we
we're
tend to
not.
do as fans, but the fan culture in Japan, I'm not talking about the way that society at large looks at fans and fan
Mhm.
culture, but within the fan culture and within the, those frameworks, I feel like there's a lot more acceptance, in the sense
Correct.
that they acknowledge that fan works are also art on a level that we typically haven't done in the West.
Correct.
Which is so fucked up to me, but by the way, because like, how cool is it whenever you come across like an illustration for a thing you like,
Mhm.
made by the creator of another thing you like everyone thinks that's so cool,
It's so cool.
but then we're supposed to just like discourage people from doing that. I don't get it. Make it make sense.
It sounds fake to me. Do you want to talk about the Fujoshi boom economy in the 1990s?
I do. I just want to throw in, because they're in the 80s. I
Oh
just have to
yes.
mention, honorary mention to Raburi, who I'm
Yes.
sure I've mentioned before. So Raburi was this dojin circle. I do have their names somewhere, but I can't remember them at present. But basically, so there's like a group of, again, women who
Hmm.
make amateur comics. They make dojin original works as well as dojin fan works.
Hmm.
And they are also part of our founding godmothers because within the circle there's one of these authors. She makes she creates for their, they had like this magazine called Rappuri, and for one of the editions of Rappuri she draws Captain Tsubasa dojin, which she names Chasing the Night, Yoru o Oikake. But when you write it down in kanji, the way she wrote it can be read as yaoi. And so she does that, and they read it as yaoi. And so the myth, the legend goes that they kind of like sat down, tongue in cheek. They were talking about how, what are we gonna say that this abbreviation stands for. And they
Hmm.
jokingly said yamanashi, ochinashi, iminashi, no point, no plot, no meaning, which which is still, what we often attribute yaoi to mean. These
Correct.
are the women who gave us the name of this subgenre, like of the fan part of
Yeah.
BL. They're very
We,
important to me.
yeah, the name of this podcast would not be what it is.
Without Raburi.
So, yeah, definitely a big shout out because I did know that story because that is always something that has been like when I chose being a Fujin as a life path,
Yes,
like,
as one does.
like becoming
Actually,
a monk,
I
when I
didn't choose. It chose me. I don't.
yeah, when it crept into my bed like a fae, it chose my life path. That was something that was always so important to me. I think it informs a lot of our understanding of yaoi, sometimes to the detriment, because I think that was also one of the things that made it feel like, especially to Western fans, like, oh, we can never be serious about this. Like, this is a dirty, this is the Goya painting where we're
Yeah.
all standing.
And then of course you have that other version which was coined by fans or critics later, that it
Mhm.
stands for Yamete Oshiri ga itai, stop and my ass hurts, which did not help,
Yeah,
I
which,
think.
and also not as good.
Not as good. Not
Not
as
as good.
that's not, that is exactly what we're trying to avoid here.
Well, I mean, we also both came up in the 2000s where lube had not been invented yet.
There is a lot of Yamete Oshiri ga itai in the manga, that the formative yaoi that we were
I was about to
reading.
say, like I'm thinking like our formative series. And apparently lube wasn't invented until like 2011.
And like once again, I can see inside, like on the back of my eyelids, in giant flashing letters in AO3 font, blood as lube. Just like, again, if this is your first episode, I'm sorry.
We were so excited to have like a serious episode and like, oh my god, this could be like our intro episode. And then we're over here. I'm just having war flashbacks to spit as lube.
There, like, can we just take a moment as we are delving into the history, into our roots? Can we just take a moment to appreciate the extent fanfic authors and mangaka will go to lubricate those holes without using lube?
Without just using
Why? What
lubricant.
was wrong with us? Why couldn't you just have, oh, and then he reached into his nightstand, or like he had one of those single packets in his back pocket? No, no. We had to go for the olive oil and the butter and the spit. It's like, what was wrong? I'm saying we as if I did this.
You're
Listen,
saying we, are you speaking French? Like
no,
I
I
you speak in French? What do you mean we?
I think I, in my early days of writing fanfiction, very much belonged to the self-lubricating uke camp, where we just didn't
Um,
mention it.
I was writing a lot of non-con, so I don't think I cared. But
No,
I don't think I cared.
but it's,
But
yeah.
also, when I did, I am the absolute master. If you read my work, there is always some kind of fuck ass side table or dresser
Mm-hmm.
next to the bed. There is all, I swear, if you read any of my fanfic for an extended period of time, there is always some fuck ass dresser or nightstand in
Yeah.
every fic that I'm assuming is just full of lube.
Yeah, like my boys, when I write, like that's the thing. When I write original now, all my boys are whores, okay? So these boys are always prepared. They're always carrying lube. They're always in a room where there's lube. Don't worry, there's lube hidden everywhere. These boys.
So yeah, enjoy reading my fanfic and waiting to find that fuck ass nightstand.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's there. It's in every fucking fic. Because that bothered me so much.
Yeah. No, I do that too, which I think is so funny because I've never had a nightstand in my life.
I have a nightstand.
I have I have a shelf on one side of the bed, and then I have it's like a laptop table on the other side, which is full of just like folded laundry that I never put away.
I have a nightstand. It has 2 drawers, a shelf area, and then like a secret cavity that has rainbow LED lights.
Ooh.
So my bedroom is a little fancy.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, so I can't wait to be like, going through my comments on AO3 and just like one of our listeners is like, fuck ass nightstand.
It's like, yeah, that should be like, here's a game for you. Read Amanda's fix and comment when you see a nightstand
It bothers
or a
me.
dresser. Like just
something, some receptacle that holds lube. But I think that's a great way to tie us back into the Fujoshi boom, because then now you're starting to talk about where we came in.
ish.
And
Yeah.
well, and for some of these cases, at least we were born.
Yeah, I was alive.
I was
Blissfully unaware of what was happening on the other side of the world.
blissfully unaware of like the Fae mixing their potions to turn
Right?
into
It was like I was okay, but to be fair, I was a child at the point that this was happening. So the 90s in Japan, again, things I've said before. The 90s in Japan, the bubble economy is bursting, except in Ikebukuro, because the Fujoshi economy is just living its own life. Like everyone else is just like suffering, and the Fujin are just like having the best time, because this is the time where a lot of these like magazines are coming up, like more and more magazines. There are drama series and so much more manga, and the genres are expanding, and all of this, and this is where Otome Road begins to kind of be established. So and while all of this is happening, in Japan, and the Fujin are just really coming into themselves. I'm this child in Norway obsessed with Biker Mice from Mars and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, completely unaware of the absolute like deviant I am about to become.
There's a very, very popular meme on TikTok that's like, oh, be the person that would make your younger self proud. And the response is, I'm not trying to impress a mentally ill teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's like be the child that that would make you proud. Like, I am not here to impress whatever amorphous blob I was at 6 saying I wanted to be Tuxedo Mask
Yeah,
instead of Sailor Moon.
I don't think that my child self would necessarily admire my adult self. I guess apart from the whole I eat snacks whenever I want, I guess that's a win.
Yeah, that's a win. It's like, you can just make cake. It's like, yeah.
What? Like what?
But I think that that's so important, because one thing also that I talk about a lot, like in my fandom and fandom history panels, is that access to physical media being used by fans to create fan works. And this bleeds us a smidgen into the 2000s, but we're not quite
it's kind of like but there is an overlap.
But I do remember, like, someone always asked me, like, well, why do you have so many character guides? Because that's one thing about me. I love a fucking character guide. I have the Bleach character guides. I have the Full Metal Alchemist original anime character guides. I have Inuyasha character guides. Like, why do you have so many character guides and drama CDs and CDs? And it's like, because you get so much information about
Mm-hmm.
characters from these guides and from these CDs. Like, to bring up something that we brought up every episode, being a Hitalia fan required you to buy physical media because you got so much character information
Mm.
from CDs and songs, lines that are supposed to be throwaway. You only get in these character CDs. It is only in character CD that you know that England has a tattoo on his foot. It is only in character CDs that you know that Prussia lives in Poland's basement. Like, it is only in these little brief what?
No, it's just the idea of Prussia living in Poland's basement.
He lives in the basement
Oh, Poland,
and he plays video games all day.
my beloved.
But like, that boom again can contribute to the Fujin economy. Is
Mm-hmm.
where, yeah, do I like having these character guides because I like being able to go over all the different sword names in Bleach? Sure, I
Mm-hmm.
am that type of neurodivergent. Is it also very helpful when I'm writing fan fiction?
Yes, which is why people were buying them. Now, again, the early 2000s and even up until like a while into the 2000s, Norwegian fandom spaces, we were kind of like in the dark ages still, so we didn't get a lot of the character guides, so we were very much, at least I was very much dependent on the people who bought them and transcribed and or scanned them and
Mhm.
shared them to places like LiveJournal. Because also what happens in the 90s going into the 2000s is obviously the birth of the internet as we know it,
Mhm.
and how that connects Western and Japanese fans and
Mhm.
creators and amateurs, and how all of these things now come together and makes an entirely new experience for everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But no, I think that's so interesting because, and like, that's not something that has stopped. At least, like, for me, like, I still go to my Death Note character guides when I'm writing Matt and Mello, and it's what caused me to have an existential crisis when I uke beamed Mello so hard that he ended up being shorter than Matt. He's not.
I can't believe you don't. Do you not know that character guide by heart by now?
Parts of it, like, I couldn't tell you anything about Misa.
No, no, no. I mean, like, just the part you're interested in.
Oh
Obviously,
yeah, like,
like,
yes,
like
studied,
you
but
wouldn't necessarily have to refer to the guide because you know it.
well, every once in a while I do still have to refer to it because, small. Okay, brief Death Note tangent. Death Note is one of those series that, like, fanon has taken over so far that it is easy to forget. So, like, Matt being taller than Mello, that's a fanon thing. He's
Hmm.
not. I think actually Mello is technically a little bit taller. Their ages, fanon tends to rewrite. Fanon also decided on Matt's hair color, which is technically not his actual hair color.
Yeah.
So, like, I do still have to kind of regularly go back to the guides just because, like, Fanon, Matt, and Mello
Mm.
is not necessarily series accurate. And while most of my readers don't care, sometimes I find myself caring too much, and it's like a furious walk 10 paces to my bookshelf to just like flip, 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 flip.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, I have it memorized, but also, like, when you're writing, when you're in the mood, when you're in the groove,
Mm.
like, it's easy to kind of like, oh shit, like, I totally forgot that, like, while fanon version of this character does this, canon version doesn't.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think the Fujoshi boom of the economy that started in the 90s and really extended into the 2000s is what that was the fertile soil that birthed fans like us.
Yep.
That's where we sprouted out of the ground.
That was when the Fae got to us finally. The plan was completed.
Yeah, the ritual was complete, and we all became virgin.
And now look.
And now look at us. I am loving this headcanon of the Fae actually just being like really big Yaoi fans.
I love it. I'll take it. Like, but I mean, Puck, Puck, you had your chance. God damn it. I'm fine.
Are you though?
No, I'm not.
Are any of us fine?
No.
But I think that's so interesting, and I think it's amazing that again, like when we talk about, you know, the 90s and the 2000s being this big boom and being the start for so many, as we transition to our next section where we start talking about more modern BL, I think this is also a good place to remember for many of us, because I know like I have a pretty good idea of like what our audience demographic is, and they're usually pretty close to our age. Uh, and I know I struggle with this, especially being someone who has severe tunnel vision. The 1990s was 30 years ago.
No.
Was 30 plus years ago.
That is not. No.
So like the way that we approached like the 60s and 70s to our parents is how modern fans are approaching the 1990s and early 2000s.
I am not okay. You broke me. Thank you. That was great.
Like, no, it blew my mind because it's like, yeah, remember how we used to talk about like the 70s and the 80s?
Yeah, because the 70s was 30 years ago, Amanda.
Girl, I have some bad news about
I know.
time.
Okay, actually, I have a quote that I wrote down to use in this episode.
Yes.
And it is from the Dr. Kirsten text. Let's see. Let
Mm-hmm.
me just find it so I don't misquote her. Okay, so in the beginning, like in the introduction to this essay that she wrote, it says
Mm-hmm.
BL has a 50-year history of shaping women's knowledge of sexuality through effective male-male romance. And I think that that is so cool, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also terrifying. Not that I was there 50 years ago, but
Well, and we'll thread that loop when we get a little closer towards the end. Is that 50 years is a lot of time to make and be a part of history.
mm,
So when things don't necessarily go 100% correct, uh, there is a legacy there that explains that rather than putting it on the shoulders of like 10 people, which is one thing that I do see a lot of modern fans still struggling with is that like they'll read like their vintage, which is like the 1990s, and be
I'm
like,
sorry, I am still reeling from that chill thing when they were like Junjo Romantica is the number one classic BL. Like, first of all, fuck off. What do you mean? It came out in 2007.
that was all.
Also,
Okay, Carola, in 2 years, that will be 20 years.
shut up.
No.
First of all, I will not stand for such slander. Second, why was gravitation in second? Gravitation, if any. Okay, we're not going there, but I am still mentally. I am still there on that survey.
Yeah, I have some news for you. In 2 years, that'll be 20 years.
Sorry, I've just gone temporarily deaf. I didn't hear a lot. Listen, that doesn't apply to me. Actually, you know what? The joke's on you because I've got dyscalculia and numbers mean nothing to me.
I was about to say, like, is this like Carola was bad at math? I don't understand what that means.
This doesn't apply to me.
Um,
Actually.
but the Fujoshi boom is where so many of us got our start,
Mm-hmm.
why so many of us are still here,
Mm-hmm.
why so many of us continue to persist. It's also the place that I feel like many of us fell off because our culture was a little aggressive back in those days.
I
Stares
mean,
at Yaoi paddle in the
yeah, I
corner.
was gonna say maybe in your part of the world where you guys were literally assaulting each other with
This
weapons.
is a perfectly acceptable tool used to greet those in a similar hobby or classification as yourself.
See, because like we didn't even have cons back then, so we like it may be where some of you fell off, but some of us hadn't even gotten started yet. It's a very it's a mixed bag.
For reference.
Good lord. Yeah, no, it's
You're still it. And this
I
is one of the small ones.
I don't. Yeah,
This is
no.
small. I physically could not ship you one of the actual size ones.
I think that's just as well. My apartment is very full and I don't understand where you think I'm supposed to keep this thing.
We'll figure it
But
out.
okay. I guess I'll find a corner for it.
Said like a true 90s semi. You'll figure it out.
It's okay.
So I think we need to talk about modern BL. And when we say modern, we while we mean, and I'm assuming for Carola, starting in like the 2010s, correct?
I don't even know what I mean because yes and no.
Because I know, because the thing with BL is that a lot of things that are new to us aren't new.
Yeah.
So while we may have just gotten like the tri-cornered mouse, that is not modern.
Right. And it's like one of those things which is like th- this is what I was talking about earlier, right? When I was talking about how when I was reading Dr. Kirsten's research on the, which which is why I have it in the outline. The text is called "The Bitches of Boys Love Comics: The
Mhm.
Pornographic Response of Japan's Rotten Women." And the essay or the article itself is not so much about the women who make BL really as it is about the juxtaposition between Ero manga and BL. So it's not
Mhm.
really that relevant to this episode apart from, which is why I wrote the modern BL as the bitches of BL, because in this
Mhm.
case I don't mean the bitches as in bitchy, as in the slutty boys that Dr. Kirsten talks about. I mean the women who write the slutty boys and how we
But
have changed.
can we talk about the slutty boys later?
We can always talk about the slutty boys. I love the
Yay.
slutty boys. Boy sluts are my favorite. We slut celebrate in this house. But I mentioned because when I did mention it earlier with the I was referencing um the article. See, now I lost myself because you have me thinking about the slutty boys. What was I saying?
Uh, I was also thinking about slutty boys. I'm
I
sorry.
don't. There was a point. I had a point. I don't even know what I was saying earlier. No, yes, exactly. Because what I was saying was how Dr. Kirsten writes about how modern BL
Mhm.
is different in the sense that you have creators like these
Mhm.
bitches that. I'm sorry, I call them bitches. If they're listening, I don't mean it in a bad way. You have creators, you have mangaka like um, Yamana Ayano,
Mhm.
Ogure Tanaka.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say Sakura. She wasn't on Kirsten's list, but and Harada, Ranmaru Saria. They are out there writing this some of the most sexually explicit, insane stuff that is
Mhm.
being published as traditional BL. And when I was reading this, I was very confused because when so I'm reading this, right? And she's like talking about what I mentioned earlier, how typically BL is, seen from the emotional perspective. It's more romanticized. It's not really focusing on, say, the sexual act is depicted, but it's more of an
Mhm.
overall image, not
Right.
necessarily hyper focusing on the genitals, for instance.
Right.
And as I'm reading this, some very specific images pop into my brain from Ogure Tsutanaka manga, and I'm like, this is incorrect. Then I turn a page and she mentions Ogure Tsutanaka, and I realize that the reason why I think this is because it isn't all that old, but it isn't all that new. But it's exactly what you were saying, that by the time we were getting these
Mm-hmm.
works, they were coming out. I mean, most of these, when I was reading them, they were being scanlated because we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have as many. Like now, we are blessed to have so many publishers who are
Mm-hmm.
publishing BL and who are like really catching up with that backlog. The things that we
Yes.
were reading on Tumblr in 2011 are now being published in stores.
Yes.
But so for me, I found this confusing when I was reading it because things that I don't consider, like, I don't consider this to be a new thing, but then I realized I was reading relatively new graphic BL side by
Mm-hmm.
side with the classics that didn't.
Yes.
Yeah. So for us as Western fans, it's kind of like it's all kind of jumbled. And then on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
not only are we getting things that we consider as new because they're being published in English for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
like now, but some of these series, you may mention Hontoyaju, has
I was
been
just about to
published
mention
for
Hontoyaju.
7,000 years. They're still
Yes.
going. And some of them aren't even that long. It's like,
No.
you're like look at Yarichin Bitch Club is 10 years old, but we only have 5 volumes. There's like a limited amount of chapters. They are
Yeah.
very slow to release. So it's kind of like an ongoing process. Yes,
Well,
it's new, but it's 10 years old.
and I think what's so amazing about BL especially is that very similarly to how like art movements have very defined structures. Like
Mm.
there is a big difference between like the impressionist and Dada. There is a huge difference between author that we both love, Makoto Tateno, and like a Fumi Yoshinaga or
Mm.
a Harada.
Yeah.
Like trying to compare yellow to literally anything Harada's written is like, this is a different genre. This is
Yeah.
new.
And that's the thing, because when you are saying that, I'm just like hearing this echo of like every single teacher I've ever had
Mm-hmm.
in, any kind of like literature, Norwegian, or even like art classes that we had in school, that
Mm-hmm.
yes, there are very clear boundaries between these genres.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's also an overlap, because it's
There
not
is.
like someone decided that we are going to be doing realism until this date,
So,
and from tomorrow we can only write naturalistic works. That's not how it works.
someone stood outside a Paris salon. We are finished with Impressionism.
Exactly. And like that's not how it works. Like these
No.
things overlap and borrow from each other, and they coexist
Yeah.
while also being different. You can say that it's an artistic period, but two artistic periods can exist at the same
Well, no, because
time.
here's the one that I was going to say. I remember starting to read Twittering Birds around the time I was reading fucking Honto Yaju. Those are two wildly different series.
Mm-hmm.
You could not compare, even though they have a very similar setup of Yakuza and Cop. Those two feel like they were written in different ecological periods.
Yeah.
They do not feel like they are on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that to make one worse than the other. Just end it. End it.
Oh my god.
You've done it. Congratulations. You've lasted this long. I was in college. Please, if you're listening, just
I
end
mean,
it.
in that case, I just want to go back to what I believe I was griping about last month.
Yes.
Takenaga Hinoko sensei, please. I love you, but let the tyrant rest. And also, if anyone from June is listening, how dare you? I can't live like this.
That woman was ready to be done, and you poked her like a spider
But then, excuse me, I don't understand why she decided to continue it, because she finished it and I was happy. And then she decided to continue it, and then June went, well, we're not gonna keep publishing it, so we're gonna cancel it. And I'm over here like, how could you do this to me? Do you know how many years I spent tracking down the volumes that were out of print? And now this?
Flashback to our tyrant rant when we were talking with BL Card.
I can't.
But it's interesting, yeah, like it feels like so much modern BL is like in a different league. But also keep in mind, because especially us getting it now, a lot of it is not that new. Very few of these are series that are like starting in 2025. A lot of these are now 10 plus years old.
Yeah, and like if you want to get like super, you know, I mean it is slightly different, but by that logic, right? Because again, I was talking about They Were 11 at the beginning of this episode, and like Heart of Toma was published in English for the first time in like 2018. So like we are even getting manga from the 70s being published in, today for the first time in English. So not all of the things we're getting are brand new, even though they feel new to us.
Yeah. And that's a huge fandom thing in general, is this kind of like reconquista that happens when something old becomes new again. So I've been watching my favorite comfort show, House.
You sure do love House.
I want those old men to kiss. I realized now, at first, when I was having impure thoughts about House when I was younger, I no longer want a boyfriend like that because he's awful. I do very aggressively want old man Yaoi with him and Wilson. So my optical lens has shifted a little bit. Also, now that I'm older, I can see how objectively terrible of a human being he is. Because when I was younger, I was ready to die on that hill of like, he's a good man doing science. And now I'm just like, look at that sociopath over there.
Yeah, well,
But like that happens with House, where like House is getting this like reintroduction to so many fans, and there's all this discourse, and it's like, yeah, we've been talking about this shit forever.
Right. It's like, it's like when I say, when all of this like fan cops, puritans, antis, whatever you want to call them, they think they've invented the wheel. Yes. And I'm over here like, listen, you are recycling arguments that have existed forever. And by the way, have you heard about the Yaoi Ronso in 1993 in Japan? Like, please stop. We've had this conversation for 30 years. Like,
I also will say one thing with House that's very, very interesting is for whatever reason, fandom hasn't accepted bisexuality.
Oh, no.
Because they really want him to be with Wilson. But like canon, his goal is to be with Cuddy, who's a beautiful woman. Just an absolute step on me mommy kind of scenario. So in trying to balance like the canon death drive of Cuddy being endgame, fans have forgotten that there are people that exist that like both. So they cherry pick episodes and tend to just like ignore entire characters and arcs. They also tend to ignore a lot of Wilson's like canon het relationships, which is very funny.
But it's like this is your annual pride reminder that bisexual people are valid no matter what gender they are currently dating. They are still bisexual.
Also, he's not real.
Yeah, that too. And
also, he's
no, but it's like, yeah, no, you're not, like, bisexuals don't exist. I think that not to be depressing, but in certain cases, I think this is a lost cause, because when even like David Bowie, no one listened to him I mean, if
No.
David Bowie is like getting sick and tired and fed up of you not understanding what he means when he says he's bisexual, there's not hope for anyone else.
Yeah, that's true. But yes, if you want Hilson fan edits, I have them.
But also, you know, what a great segue you mentioning Old Man Yaoi, because I also want to point out that there are like these because one of the things that is, you know, that is changing BL and how BL is being created, you know, and we've talked about this before, is, you know, how again there's this push and pull where
Hmm.
things are affecting one another. And yeah,
Hmm.
you know, BL has its own history and it has its own um how you know, it has its own, oh my god, my vocabulary is shot to hell.
So it's not.
There are like certain expectations,
Hmm.
certain genre requirements, so to speak,
Hmm.
for BL, but at the same time, it's still continuously evolving and it's still taking on impulses, which is one of the reasons why, you know, modern day BL and global BL is so cool, because you're seeing all of these, like, you're seeing how um, non Japanese people making BL are influenced by the Japanese BL,
Hmm.
but incorporating like what we're doing, incorporating our own experiences and
Hmm.
cultures and contexts. And how, for instance, you see how I think it's interesting how Japan and Thailand, for instance, are exchanging, because the Thai BL industry is
Hmm.
based on the Japanese industry. And then
Hmm.
now they're kind of doing this thing where they're exchanging, where Thailand based themselves on Japan, and now Japan is taking inspiration from what Thailand is doing, and they are
Hmm.
like remaking each other's works. And I think that that's really funny. But then you have stuff like, which I what I was getting at.
Hmm.
I am so sorry, I cannot remember her name right now. There is a mangaka on Twitter that has been going like viral every so often this past year, because she noticed that Western fans really love Old Man Yaoi, and they started,
Yes.
yeah, and they started nicknaming her like her works Old Man Yaoi, and now that is literally the selling point. Like there are literal like physical posters out in bookstores that say the Old Man Yaoi will be released in physical media on this date in June.
Right. Like
It's beautiful.
it's amazing. Like it's really something that I never thought we would see. Um it's just it's fantastic. Also fun fact, House and Wilson is the second pairing mentioned on the list of old man yaoi on Wikipedia.
Who's the first?
I don't remember, but I know Hilson is second.
Okay.
But if you go to the old man
I'm gonna
yaoi,
try Old Man Yaoi. I can't. No, not Old Man Yells at Cloud.
but I think that that's so fascinating, and it's important to understand that these two
Oh,
worlds.
now they've
Yes.
actually been pushed down to third,
What?
because number one now is Steed Bonnet and Edward, what? Steed Bonnet and Edward Teach. So are
No.
Flagman's Death. And
No.
then Logan and Wade Wilson, Deadpool and Wolverine. And then House and Wilson.
Okay. Well, that's not my favorite, but
They're not that old.
who?
Steed and Blackbeard.
They're not,
They're not. I don't know if that counts. Also, why is Sonic and Robotnik?
because
You
one
know
of
what?
them's a literal old man.
This list is not good for my sanity, I think.
Close that list. Close that.
I did. I was
Please
like, you
close.
know what? That was enough. That's enough internet for today.
Well, now I know what we're doing for Patreon.
What are we doing for Patreon?
We're just gonna react to the old man yaoi list.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But what I love about this like modern era of BL is that communication has really opened up between fan and creator. That line feels very blurred. You know, like they say during Halloween or Samhain, that the spirit world and the world of mortals is at its thinnest.
Mm.
It feels like that with creators for good and ill. Stop bullying mangaka.
Please. Please. I can't live like this. You know, also, this has nothing. Can I just may I rant for 2 minutes or less?
Starts timer. Yes.
Okay. I just want because again, I haven't been much on the internet this past week because my life has been, you know. But I went online, and the one thing that has kept me sane this week is the fact that Beyond Cloud, my beloved Beyond Cloud, made Kinforge, they released the trailer for their new series Shine in on the 11th, and Shine is coming out in August, which is a lot earlier than I thought. I'm very excited. However, I have two I have two comments. One, Beyond Cloud has been trying to tell me that this is to be expected to be a romantic comedy. Tell me, Amanda, why this trailer is full of 60s hippies, protests, and people being beaten by police. Where is the romantic comedy? I am just asking. Second, which is where I'm gonna rant. P Pond, the director, went out on the press conference and stated that he does not consider, they do not label this new series as a BL, or what they in Thailand call Series Y, because it incorporates a lot more. So they refer to it as a gay series, which is fair. It's a gay series. It's about gay men in the 60s in Thailand. Okay, sure. Again, not all gay stuff is BL, but all BL is gay. I keep saying this. However, the fucking idiot fans on the world on the internet world, who are so, who think that BL are like, now I have seen a couple of really bad takes that are like, oh, that's great because it's, because BL is this and it's so much better that they're doing a gay series instead because representation, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the people who are like, oh, don't try to think that you're better than anyone just because you're making something that is not BL. And I'm like, oh my God, why hasn't anyone learned anything? I am too tired to be having this discussion.
We talked about this in our last live stream about Don May, so we're gonna just
Yeah, I just had to throw it in there because again, we keep on rehashing the same things.
We are not talking about this here because we would be here Chet's notes all day.
I don't want to live like this anymore, Amanda. I think, but again, yes, let's go back to the good things. There are so many cool things.
There are so many cool things. One thing that I did notice seeing in that osmosis and cross-cultural exchange is lube is more popular than ever in modern BL, which thank you for listening to all of us for years scream into the void. There was one anthology series where a guy used cooking oil instead of lube, and I was never more incensed in my life. It was the Baby Bitch anthology.
Oh, Baby Bitch!
I love Baby Bitch.
That one.
But I have seen some things when it comes to BL. I don't think I had been angrier than watching a seme use cooking oil as lubricant.
Personally, I think the cooking oil isn't the worst. I think I actually saw someone using actual motor oil at one point. And no, I don't think that's good.
Our next tier list, worst things.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. We've seen so many things. But there has been this really, really fascinating aspect of cross-cultural exchange that social media has allowed us. That this modern Fujo boom has granted us. Now, to briefly be economist, Amanda, I do think that bubble is bursting soon.
No.
Just because, at least in the US, we are headed for a recession.
You don't say.
Huh?
You don't say.
On a whole, fascism is on the rise. globally, there's a lot going on. So I do see that bubble bursting. Um, but a burst bubble does not mean it never comes back. I mean, we have the bubble fully fall out from underneath us in the 2000s when like Tokyo Pop went under and things like that. So not to say that it'll be gone. Like I'm not saying there will be no BL. Like it'll like,
Yeah,
but I
no.
definitely think the very very heavily BL driven economy, that bubble I think is close to bursting.
Yeah, and I think also when you mentioned that like again, I haven't been paying attention a lot lately. I've been avoiding Twitter a little bit for the past ages. So,
Mhm.
but I've seen some discourse happening also about there are some manga publishers, English language manga publishers, who are really out shooting themselves in the leg at the moment because they are talking about how they are using AI translations rather than using actual localizers. And
Mhm.
as we all know, that's not going to go over well, nor should it. But I mean, that will also impact the industry
Mhm.
if we start boycotting companies. And also, there's an oversaturation. Let's be fair. Like, again, I have never been so blessed to be a Fujin, but I've also never been so cursed because there's just so much to keep up with. I have to
Mhm.
buy everything. I mean, I don't have to buy everything. I just want to. And as long as I'm not killing my economy doing it, I will be doing it. And
Yeah.
but it's like it's just there's just so much,
Mhm.
and the companies are, some of them are probably biting off more than they can chew. It's not going to be something that they can keep up for a very long time, I think.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. The current I mean, the current anime industry I think is approaching a bubble being burst, which
Mm.
frankly I'm happy for because I think we do need like a reset. I think we need to go back in time a little and remember how things were
Which
because
is why
appar- apparently I'm one of those parents that like let's send my bad child to wilderness camp. That will
yeah.
fix you. Oh,
Listen, what about a couple of years where you can't access simulcasts? Huh? How's that for you? You have to find your anime yourself on the internet. Good
you have
luck.
to go back out to the parking lot in some guy's van
Yeah.
and buy a DVD bootleg. But I am curious to see what truly like if we're still doing this show in 10 years, which sounds like a really long time.
I don't think I'm alive in 10 years, let's be honest.
Uh I know you don't reveal your age, but I am hoping in 10 years you are still alive.
I am also hoping that I mean, it depends. If the world keeps going the way it's going, I don't know if I want to be alive in 10 years.
Uh so I would love to see like what are the conversations we're having in 10
Mm,
years. I can't wait to have to talk about like oh my god, do you remember how problematic twittering birds was? And we
no.
don't read stuff like that anymore. We don't read archaic things like that anymore.
No, but Amanda, the real question is, in 10 years,
Will
do you think
Hontoyaji still be going on? I I will ascend. In Catholicism, they say the Virgin Mary never died. She was just called up to heaven. That will be me. In 10 years, we're going to check in. And if Hontoyachi is
I
still
think
going on.
I think regardless of if we're doing the show in 10 years, we should
Yes.
do an episode in 10 years. If Hontoyaju we'll do the Hontoyaju special in
In
10
10
years
years.
regardless.
In 10 years, we're doing the Hontoyaju episode. And no sooner. I will not
No.
consider it. But yes, like if it's still going on, that is when Satan will finally call me back home. It's like
That's
you've
not
had a good.
ascending, Amanda. That's descending.
Well, I'm not the Virgin Mary now, am I? I'm not going to ascend.
You're the one who said you were ascending. I don't know.
No, I fully intended to descend. I don't think.
No.
I don't think God is. I don't think that's righteousness.
No. Also,
I'm not.
you'll have way more fun in hell.
I don't. I'm not an. I'm a bad Catholic. I'm not so bad that I would say me reading fictional butt sex analogizes me to the Virgin Mary. That's that's heresy.
Maybe.
That listen, I'm a bad Catholic for a lot of reasons.
Okay,
That
but I do want to make an argument here, just a little like hear me out moment, because
okay.
in a lot of the stuff that I've been reading, that I was reading not last week, the week before when I was
Okay.
preparing for the original episode,
Okay.
a lot of the stuff that talks about the women who write and enjoy BL and why
Yeah.
they do, like again, a lot of this is outdated. And
Mm-hmm.
one of these chapters had a whole like psychoanalysis thing going on, and I didn't understand a lot of that because it was referencing texts I've never read. So that was, it wasn't giving. Okay, I didn't understand much of it. However, a lot of the reasons that are attributed to why women created BL, continue to create BL, and enjoy BL are,
Mm-hmm.
how it's the power, it's the agency. We've talked so
Mm-hmm.
much about this on this podcast.
We
Podcast.
do.
It's um how, like I mentioned, women finding their sexuality
Mm-hmm.
through BL. But a lot of the arguments that I saw as well was like, why men, And as much as it has been attributed to, yeah, but because it's feminist, because they couldn't express their own sexuality, so they channeled it through male characters.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are a lot of arguments as well going back to, well, yeah, but women don't have a sexuality. Like, basically, these are asexual women, therefore they can't sexualize themselves, therefore they're
Mm-hmm.
sexualizing men. So I would argue that the Virgin Mary, she probably would have been a Fujoshi if she had the chance. You know? I think that she could have been one of us.
I have to tread very carefully here because inside of me are two wolves. One that would love to agree with you and very much wants to double down, and the other part of me that would one day like to be reunited with my parents. So, for the sake of completing my nuclear family, I have to disagree with you.
Mm. Well, I mean,
However, however, as a scholar, I don't think you're incorrect.
no, I think I'm onto something. And like, I can say these things because I am a secular heathen.
Yeah. And
So join me for some blasphemous takes on this lovely Pride Sunday.
and I have an aunt who said she was going to call me after church.
Yes. There there
After
are
church.
there are two kind of people.
Yeah. There's two kinds of people. But you brought up a great point when we were talking about this and with women using men sort of like avatars to
Mm.
express their own desires. Is this fetishizing gay men?
I have a note. Let me read it to you.
Yes,
I have a
so
note of
fed
it.
up.
It says,
It sounded so fucking fed up with me.
I have a note
Yes.
in my personal note document, which I have barely looked at this entire episode. There are so many things I could have pointed out, but I think I covered some of it. Anyway,
You carried a lot. You covered a lot.
my note on, is this fetishizing gay men or
Mm-hmm.
is this fetishization? For fuck's sake, Karen, let it be about the women for once. And then there's like a sub point.
Yes.
No, we all have fantasies. Those are my
But,
2 cents.
but to the point, I think it's what you brought up. It's that when you discuss what women are allowed to do socially, it is not typically being sexually forward. It is not
Mm.
typically having a lot of agency. It is not having conversations and thoughts and conflicted feelings about sexuality. And writing as a man, or in many instances, these yaoi characters being a third gender. I would even, to an extent, I would say some semeis are also in that category.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like when I was reading, because I haven't read all of it, but I was reading a lot of the chapters in the Kazumi no Gaike book.
mhm,
And one of the things that is pointed out is that women writers and readers alike don't
mhm,
always identify with the uke character. Sometimes they identify with the seme, case in point. But sometimes they don't they can identify with both. And again, this book came out in 2012, and I'm not
mhm,
sure when all of the texts in here are from. And again, they're referencing other texts, so
mhm.
I don't have like years for all of it, but it's also there's a section in here which I like briefly read through where they are talking about the bisexuality of it all. And while they are talking about bisexuality, they're not only referring to the attraction, but
Mhm.
also the gender aspect. And again, like, because again, like you said, BL characters are often described as a third gender, but
Yes.
here the bisexual experience is also explained through how these characters transcend genders as well.
Mhm.
And there's this one interesting section, which again, this has aged strangely because I think when this was written, what they are trying to say, right? They're referring to the uke as kind of like a, like a substitute for the woman, while also
Mhm.
being, he's his own like kind of like entity, but he's still a self insert for the
Mhm.
female reader, or whatever, which is why they are continuously referring to him when they're describing the uke and what happens to the uke. They are talking about his anus slash vagina. And I think that that's interesting because the reason they're doing this, obviously, in this text is because he is a substitute for the woman, hence the
Yes.
vagina. So not anal sex, like the anal sex is a substitute or an allegory for vaginal sex. But if you look at it today, when we see a lot more gender diversity in BL, and the diversity in the bodies of the BL characters as well,
Yes.
I think that is also very interesting reading it with 2025 eyes.
Yes. No, absolutely. Because I do a lot of the fic I read is very body diverse, and
Right?
I don't consider it any less BL.
No, because like
The-
some men have vaginas.
yeah. So probably another thing we should do a topic on, but we're not there yet. So I think what's interesting is that a lot of the arguments for is this fetishizing gay men start with these female roots. It starts
Mm.
with this very myopic view of yaoi being this like circle jerk of cishet women who all sit together in dark rooms summoning up evil conjurings of pretty gay men butt fucking each other.
Now listen, what that sounds fun, but it also has been debunked time and time again. Like again, may we direct you to the Fujoshi project, right? To
Yes.
to Sam's research,
Yes.
to Mario's research, right?
Yes. But a lot of the tired ass arguments that you hear in the is this fetishizing gay men
Mm,
aspect of anti-Fujo bias are from these female roots, which is why I thought it was so important to talk about it because
yeah.
I mean, we talk about it every episode, but I think it was important to talk about it at length is because to fully understand why this argument keeps coming up, you need to know the women that gave us what we're
Mm-hmm.
working with. And then you also need to understand, as we did in the BL misogyny episode, how much baggage we bring into it.
Yeah. I
Yes.
I have two notes that I found when I was going through the Nagaike book, and I have like these, I have my little annotations. And
Yes.
there is one where I have commented, the chapter is talking about like precisely this, what we were just discussing, like why the
Hmm.
women are identifying and how, how is the sexuality expressed.
Hmm.
And I wrote a note to myself asking the question, is the reason why we keep on talking about this and why there is so much academic writing on why women enjoy male gay sex going back to, like, is this just because our sexuality is still considered as non-existent, like, because it's almost like it's an anomaly, right? We keep
Hmm.
coming back to, why do women even enjoy this, as if we're not allowed to enjoy things. And then the oh my god, help me, fetishization
Fetishization.
part is, I think, echoes how men look at lesbians. And again,
Mhm.
I, as a sapphic person, as a queer woman, I don't think it's a problem that men enjoy lesbian porn, as long as they're not objectifying and like harassing and whatever real life lesbians. That's not the
Mhm.
same thing. Um, and another note I had, which I do believe I may have actually written down as well, which was, uh, let's see if I can find it. Yes, lack of representation, lack
Yes.
of access, and
Yes.
plenty of guilt.
Yeah. Yes.
Those are the roots
Yes.
for why women
Yes. That's
enjoy
it.
gay porn.
That's no, like that's it.
What?
Because
Yeah, that's literally it.
I transported back to myself at 17. And it's so funny because like even though yes, I identify as male, um sometimes it's a very specific male and that masculinity is very based on 2000s B shonens. Like it isn't
Hideyuki, yes.
it, it's like a combination of like three, and Yuki is
Mm.
definitely one of them. But like that male persona I have is not rooted in like real black men. It's rooted in fictional twinks. It's rooted in this third gender
Mm-hmm.
90s 2000s be shonen. That to me is no less masculine. But even my version of masculinity is influenced by, they say, the kids on the dating apps, they talk about men written by women.
Oh yeah, she breasted boobily.
Yeah. Um, well, that's men writing women, but a man written by a woman is pretty much any of your like romantasy twink, because it's literally a man written by a woman, of
Mm.
just like, oh, and he cares so deeply about her heart and her interests and all this other stuff, things that apparently are gay and straight men aren't allowed to do that.
I mean, listen, I have seen the hot take that having sex with a woman makes you gay. So at this point, I don't know what the straights consider as straight and gay. I'm very confused. Did you know that if you show emotions to a woman, that means that you are feminine, therefore you are gay? In this month of Pride, I would like to send a thought and some prayers to our non queer siblings out there and asking, are you guys okay?
There
Blink
is
if you need help.
there is an entire genre of pornography that is presumably cis het men giving each other hand jobs and them swearing up and down that this isn't queer activity.
No, see, this is a circle because if you go even further back, like we have covered a lot of history today.
We have.
And again, I'm gonna bring up Dr. Kirsten, but also some history. So in Japanese, we talk about Odo, right? You
Mhm.
have Bushido, the path of the warrior or the path of the
Mhm.
sword, and you have what Dr. Kirsten talks about, which is BL Odo. So this is the path of BL. These are kind of like the rules that are laid out for BL.
Mhm.
And there's an honor code. And this honor code actually goes back to pre-modern Japan, and even to the Nihongi, the Chronicles of Japan,
Mm-hmm.
the book of the Nihon Shoki gods, where all the gods for 3 generations were male, which suggests that they had to reproduce with each other. So in Japanese mythology and in Japanese history, which I've talked about before, as well as in a lot of Western history, because we see this in we saw this in ancient Greek, we saw this in Rome, we saw this in
Mm-hmm.
Sparta. I was alive. I am very old. I was there. But that love or sexual encounters between men were not only common, but they were encouraged
Mm-hmm.
because men were equals. Therefore, relations between men were considered more honorable than
Mm-hmm.
relations with women because women are less worth. Therefore, these circle jerks with the straight men kind of make sense in a way, I think. There's a long there's a long very long history and heritage behind it.
There is. Uh, I'm blown away by us today.
We are
We've
very today is like wow.
we've really done some stuff today.
Like
I,
finally we get to show that we know things.
we do. We
Like
do.
hello, I am actually smart. I just
You're so
prefer to not
smart.
show it.
You are so intelligent. Like you are really
Thank you.
smart.
I read
Um,
a lot about this stuff, okay? I care about this. But
you do.
I also want to point out, which I wrote down for myself as we were, preparing for this, that
Mm-hmm.
I may sit around reading, about the psychology behind why women create and write BL and why we enjoy BL, and a lot of that of course resonates. A lot of it doesn't, because everything doesn't resonate with everyone. We need to remember that. And like I've said
Mm-hmm.
before, like we've talked about a lot, that it's okay if you just enjoy BL for enjoying BL. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to have a deeper meaning. And it's not like when I read BL that I sit around like, oh, I'm probably enjoying this because of the psychological processes in my brain that are triggering this and this and this. No, most of the time I'm just thinking, hey, this is really hot.
Yeah.
That's how I usually process these things. I'm not like constantly like looking at it from an academic perspective.
Absolutely. And I think that that's important to mention is that yes, we are not always um consciously having these conversations with ourselves, because like I know I get this a lot doing media criticism. It's like, oh, can you just enjoy anything? Is your
No,
brain just like, yeah, no. No.
I mean I can, but
Yeah.
I can't control it.
Yeah. But it's like, can you just like sit and turn off your brain and watch something? No. But that doesn't take away my enjoyment of things when they're nonsensical.
No, of course
Um,
not. Which is why we are so like we're very good, I think, at like jumping between those things when we do these podcasts, because
absolutely.
yeah,
Uh, this has been a great episode.
it was a great episode.
I'm so proud of us. Um, this is the part of the show where we thank our patrons. If you go over to patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf, you are able to support us monetarily. Both of your hosts have been going through it this month. We appreciate our patrons. We would appreciate you a little extra if you sign up for support. And today, as we have with our patrons, thank you to Aria, Hito, Starlight, Kenny, Braden, Dobie80, Koval, Sue, Lucy H, Amora Blue, Nabila, let's see, yes, Wesley, Lauren, and Jay. Thank you so much
Thank you so
for supporting
much.
the show. And let's see, when did we have? Oh, yes. And for June, we do still have Ren as a patron. Thank you so much for supporting the show. It means the world to us. If you would like to join them, get exclusive videos every single month.
Unhinged content just for
Uh,
you.
feel free to do so at patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. Again, that is patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. We need a montage of the radio ad reads.
Yeah.
Um, This month looks a little bit different because we will not be having a live, but as we discussed earlier, we're going to be at CitrusCon
We're gonna be live at CitrusCon next week.
next week.
Wow.
We still have so much work to do.
I would like to sue someone for the passage of time.
Um,
Is that could I do that?
No.
Please.
No. That's not how that works.
I want a refund.
No, you can't have it. I'm so excited. At CitrusCon, we will be deconstructing some of the roles that women play in BL. We might notice that there's a theme here.
You think?
We think about stuff.
We think about a lot of stuff. And you know, it's like, you know, I think we've said it. I think we've said it throughout this episode, but like it is like you said at the introduction, why are we talking about women? This is about BL because BL and women, you know, there's a connection. Were you listening to the episode?
What were you doing for 2 hours?
Like, hello? No, but yeah, and also yes, we've debunked it isn't just women or women presenting folks who enjoy or create BL. But we are tied to the genre through history and fandom history and for a lot of reasons. And so that's why we're exploring it this fine Pride Month.
And, you know, I'm excited to talk about it. You know, as Carola and I started our outline for it, we already started having so many ideas of like how women show up in BL, both positive and negative. And I think deconstructing some of those roles can really, really help. I know at least like as a writer, being able to spot it really helps me process it. Especially when I go back and read older works and it's like, why the fuck are you here?
Yeah, but like it is like what I said when we had our meeting / therapy session the other day.
All of our meetings are also therapies. Like there's like a carved out period of time. That's just therapy.
It's like there's a part that's like it's serious meeting and then it's therapy and then we do some crying and then we start just talking about unhinged stuff. And
we start talking about him.
Yeah, no. And then no, but what was I saying? Like, yeah, no, we were talking about this and we were kind of like trying to like, oh, which roles are we going to mention and like whatever. And I'm like, have I even seen any women in BL? It's like, who are these women? Like, have we been reading the same stuff? No, they do exist.
They do exist. And I think it's also important to see how some of our own internalized mythology gets reflected back onto us through some of these less than stellar presentations of women in media that we attach to. So like for me, I built a lot of my masculinity on BL. It definitely framed how I look at women.
Well, it could have been worse.
Oh yeah, like
your view on women could have been shaped by straight men. So
yeah, you know. I mean, I'm not gonna tout myself too much because that's self-aggrandizing, but it could be much worse.
At least it wasn't Andrew Tate. It's like there are two wolves inside of you.
What is Andrew Tate? I mean, there is probably a universe somewhere where I just transitioned and then in a desperate feat to fit like hetero masculinity just fell into the manoverse.
Oh my god.
Because there's a lot of like black cells. There's a lot of black incels. There is absolutely a fucked up timeline where I transitioned like as a child and then to desperately reconnect with masculinity just like fully became like a Hotep manosphere guy.
I think we need to find that timeline and go
and burn it.
Yeah, Deadpool, where are you?
But
Deadpool?
That timeline definitely exists. I'm just like, see, as a high value man, women don't.
I'm having a stroke. You're not allowed to do this to me.
Just me and my dashiki.
Ew.
See, as a high value man, as an alpha, these women, they don't want to work. And I'm glad I'm not him.
I mean, you're damn right I don't want to work. I want to sit at home and read BL all day. What's your point?
Having a worldview that was built by BL, I think is better than
Yeah,
Joe Rogan
yeah.
and Andrew Tate.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
No. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No.
you can find us all over the social internet at the Yaoi Shelf. We are continuing our migration away from Twitter. It's been hard, but we're on Blue Sky, and we promise we'll be more active. Peek behind the curtain when we say both hosts were going through it this month. We mean it.
Yeah. Do should I make an announcement?
I feel like I feel like you should, but I don't want
Yeah.
to pressure you.
I mean, I don't know. I thought I would do it at the beginning of the episode, but we were in such a good mood. So basically, I've been going through it this week as our beloved third co-host, my darling Sansa, the monster. His age finally caught up with him, and after some very rough days, we had to let him go, and it was very peaceful. His vet came to our house, and we had it. We did it here, and he was safe in his own home, and I got to hold him, and it's been horrible, but yeah. So I've been in hell, and yeah. How do you even say something like that? Yeah, no. So we're down a co-host, and it's really
Um, I have to resume my job hunt because my last agency decided that I was not a good fit. So both of us are truly going through it. I remember going through my own grief and then listening to Carola and then just like, oh well, I have to be here for Carola now. Like fuck my shit. Like I had to,
I
like
was
just putting all of my stuff in a box and being like, I have to be here for Carola. And
yeah.
it's something that I was glad to do. It's something that I'm happy I got to do was be there for my co-host as much as possible.
Hmm.
Sansa was so loved by all of us.
He was such a big part of this podcast with his constant interruptions, wanting
Yes,
to be center stage,
yes.
so
Messing with equipment,
messing
so
with equipment.
eating microphones,
Oh my god.
having to let him out. But we please know that when I say this on behalf of our audience, is that we are here for you. We as well loved Sansa and oh no.
No, I'm fine.
And that thank you for sharing him with us.
I mean, he he shared himself with
Okay,
you. I couldn't keep him away from this camera if I wanted to.
that's true. That's true.
He wanted
Uh,
to be a YouTuber, okay? It was
he did. He did.
and I mean,
So,
I can laugh and smile. It's been really rough, but I had him for almost 19 years.
mhm,
So my life is incredibly empty right now, but we made the right decision, and it feels a lot better now that I know that he's not in pain, and
mhm,
he was really struggling at the end, and it was just, he wasn't the cat that he usually is. So
mhm,
I mean, I'm not crying right now because I think I can't cry anymore. I've cried continuously for a week. So like I'm all out of salt water. But yeah. But for those of you who are in the Discord who already knew about this, yeah,
mhm.
thank you for all your support. It really means a lot. I've gotten so many messages from people who really cared about him, and we're always looking forward to hearing about his last wild adventures. So he is the most loved cat.
He was so loved. Um, so, in spite of our personal tragedies, we persist,
We persist. The horrors persist, but so do
and so
we.
do I. Uh, I'm so proud of us. I say this like every episode, but when I truly say like I'm so proud of us, I mean it. Um, every day I am inspired and in awe that I have a co-host like Carola.
Oh, stop it. Who does absolutely nothing, by the way, aside from contributing to this particular episode. Actually, I'm going to contribute a lot to next month's episode.
You are. Can I? Okay, I do have a story that is kind of funny and I think perfectly illustrates our relationship. We were having our meeting for CitrusCon, and Carola asked, "Oh, hey, like, is there anything I can do to help?" And I said, "Yes, if you could start the outline, that would be really, really helpful."
I
And she's like,
thought
"Okay,
you said that, and
yeah."
then
And I kept saying, "Yeah, if you could get started on the outline." But suddenly, as we were talking, she started shifting if I could start the outline.
no, what I said, no, because the thing was, I just want to. That's why I asked. I just asked in a really awkward way because what I
Yes,
meant, because I thought you said that I was supposed to start it,
I did.
but then I was like, because my audio was so fucked up at the beginning, and then I gaslit myself, and I wasn't sure that that's what you'd said. But what I really meant to ask you was if you'd taken notes, because I forgot to take notes during the meeting. I could have started the outline, but what I meant was referring to the meeting notes. That's
So from my perspective, I just hear like right at the end, "Oh, have you started the outline?" And I'm like,
that's not no
the thing I asked you to do 3 times."
no because
And
that's not what I meant. Oh my
it's
god.
like, "No, I haven't." And I just like quietly went over and opened up a doc and started the
No, and I'm so sorry. That was literally not what I was trying to do.
I just thought it was so funny.
I was
It's
just,
like
and then
that
I was
thing I asked for help with
no,
three
and I
times.
would do it, and then I was like, and then I got confused.
It's okay.
But to
I'm
be
gonna put
fair,
her to
that
work.
yeah, it was 1 a.m. in the morning, so I guess I was a
Yeah.
little.
No, she's okay. I thought it was very funny, but I was like,
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was not it. Please put me to work.
oh, I will. I will. Speaking of being put through work, next month is our birth month.
I'm not okay with this.
Being old?
Yeah.
Well,
I was doing one of those like before my life collapsed. I did one of those, those little question stickers on
mhm,
Insta where it's like add yours, and it's
mhm,
like add your birthday no matter how far. And I didn't think about it, so I just punched in my birth date, and then
mhm.
this sticker has the audacity to tell me that it's June 7th and it is exactly 1 month to the day, and I was like, okay, this isn't okay. What do you mean? So, but I'm very excited about our birthday month recording schedule.
Carla, I mean, I don't even feel like we can tease what we're talking about.
We've been talking
We
about it.
made the calendar. I think it was late last year, early this year.
Yeah, like it was like December or January, and
Yeah,
we've been mentioning this episode ever since. I
exactly.
don't think it's
We've
going to be a
talked about
surprise.
this for 6 fucking
I mean,
months.
if you are still here, if this was your first episode and you're still
Hello.
here 2.5 hour later, um, next month we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things in this entire world, which owns my heart and soul, and I have not stopped thinking about nor crying about since 2004, as we are going to talk about Sasunaru.
Which is 21 years ago.
Shut up.
Whoa!
No, actually, you know what, this is the one thing where I'm like kind of okay with it being 20 plus years ago, because
Mhm.
that's like a badge of honor. I can be like, listen, I have been
Yeah,
crying about these two morons for over 20 years.
yeah.
Sit your ass down.
I've been on the same boat in varying levels of the ship, but I've been on the same boat. Also, I think you'll think this is hilarious. Do you know what I started seeing a lot of on my smut account after after our last Patreon episode? I got
I'm
an
trying to,
explosion of Sasode.
yeah, I was trying to remember what the hell we did for Patreon last time. It feels like a
I
million years ago. Oh,
I had an
Sasuke.
explosion of Sasode.
I haven't seen a single Sasuke in a long time. I've seen a lot of Kisaita, which made me happy.
We don't have time to unpack my feelings about that. But I saw a lot of Sasode and I was like,
Oh, they're
damn
so
it.
lovely. And then there was that prosthetic I sent you the picture of from Insta, which was
There
mildly
was.
terrifying, but also very cool. The
Um,
the the comment section. There were two kinds of people in the comment section.
there were our private chat is at the same time one of the most comforting and supportive places you could ever be, but also clearly one of the interior rings to hell.
I mean, you're not wrong. Some of the things that we are sending each other.
Like our private chat is at the same time one of the most loving and supportive places you could ever be. And also clearly made up of what Satan wipes his ass with.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
But we're going to celebrate our birthday month talking about Sasunaru, a
Oh
pairing
my.
that is, for so many of us, like the pairing. It is the thing that brought us into BL. It is the gateway. It is the pathway. It is the thing that we have um, founded our fandom on.
When I say I go down with this ship, that is the ship. When I say OTP, that is it.
Yes.
There's nothing else.
Yes. Sasunaru was so foundational and so important to so many fans of our age, which is why we're making it about our birthdays. Because if you talk to any fan our age, they're going whether they hate it or love it, they're gonna talk about Sasunaru. It was everywhere. It was BL fandom.
It was, yeah.
So we are contractually obligated to talk about Sasunaru during our birth month.
I want to say, like, I am so happy, but I fear that I'm going to start crying mid episode because usually there's a point where I talk about Naruto where I just break into tears for reasons.
I'm actually going to start a little. I started a little rewatch after I went to the Naruto Symphony experience. And I kind of want to. I don't want to say finish it up because that was like the first. It was like the entire first series of Naruto was through that experience. I'm not watching all of that, but like definitely at least like get me through the Chunin exams of like what were we seeing that we so obviously thought.
I mean, I said last month that I wanted to try rereading the manga, which I do think is technically possible in the time that we have.
It is.
I mean, not counting all the other things that I unfortunately need to do as Torukon approaches.
Yes.
but I'm also like still stuck in. I think Naruto ended like in. I don't even like. It's like 10 years ago. Like the manga, and I still feel like it's too soon to revisit it because my heart is just so broken, and I'm not. But it's like and then I was like, before my leg, which if you are not, just like some backstory there, I have a stress injury in my legs, and I'm not allowed to go anywhere, which has been fun for the past 2 weeks. And before I injured my leg, I was out talking to my friend, and we were on our regular walk, and somehow, as we do, we start talking about Naruto, and I mentioned that we were going to talk about Naruto on the July episode about Sasunaru, and I was like, I am blaming my friend for this because he was the one who said something that made me want to do this. I was like, remember when I reread Gravitation and I like put in annotations for every single chapters, and I ended up writing that giant ass document that ended up becoming the Gravitation panel? What if I did the same, but it's Sasunaru? He's like, do you understand how long that panel would be?
Yeah, we would be here.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. I might end up doing that someday, but for now, I will wrestle with my emotions and decide whether or not I want to reread the manga for next month.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Oh my god.
Um,
I'm gonna be a mess. Like, I'm just gonna warn you guys in advance. I am apologizing for the person I'm about to become.
should we do map? Should we need to do like themed T-shirts and everything?
Oh yeah.
Like this is gonna be big. I'm so excited. Um, so if you would like to, we have an 18 plus Discord that you can join. In there, we talk about our episodes. We talk about what we're reading. I sometimes talk about when I'm writing. Um,
I
also,
sometimes appear.
Carola does sometimes appear like the Phantom of the Opera, and it's very dramatic. It literally is just like Eric, where it's like, "Hello," and then,
And the thing is, I will do this thing where I just pop up and then I'll like drop something like a link, and then I just disappear.
yes, yeah, and then I'll get these people asking questions like, "What was that thing?" Carola's like, "I don't fucking know."
But like again, in my defense, most of the people in our Discord are active when I am asleep.
Correct.
So when I drop something in the Discord, a lot of people are not there. And
Correct.
so like I'm always on the wrong side of the Discord server.
Yes, it is not. It is not Carola's fault. It is the
Only
fault of time.
partially. Yeah. Time
But
is yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
feel
please
free,
join the Discord. It's a great place.
join the Discord. Leave us a review on wherever you're listening. Leave us a comment if you're on YouTube or Spotify. We love comments.
It really helps.
It
It,
helps
you
out
know,
so much.
it helps, engagement helps boost the podcast, but also we just really enjoy talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Like I just want to know what you guys are thinking.
yeah.
I
What
want to
are
dig into your brains. Come on, talk to me. Was that creepy? Was that too much? Okay. I just want to have a conversation. I think it's really cool when you guys have like, when you bring in your own experiences or
yeah?
stories or whatever, and we can talk about them. I think that's very, very
We
nice.
love that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here. It's been two and a
Thank
half
you.
hours.
Thank you for listening to us just waffle for the past 15 of those minutes.
I mean, we had a lot to say.
And we've been gone for a while, and I feel like we had a lot, we had some updates, and we missed people. We're allowed
You know,
to chit
we're
chat.
allowed. It's
We're
our
allowed.
show.
It's our show. Like wait.
It's our fucking show.
But like, thank you for still listening.
Yeah. Be safe out there. If you are going to protests, remember to leave your phone. Burners only. Cover any tattoos that will make it easy to recognize you. Um, and most importantly, fuck ice.
Fuck ice.
Fuck ice. Uh, we'll see you at CitrusCon. Bye.
Yay! Bye.